Welcome to the Deep Dive podcast channel.
Great to be here.
Today we're looking at something we all kind of live with, but maybe don't question enough. This whole idea of what's normal. And specifically, what if the way we define normal, always being busy, keeping emotions in check, striving constantly, what if that's actually harming us, making us more anxious, disconnected, maybe even sick?
It's a really powerful question. We internalize this benchmark, don't we? This idea of how we should be.
Yeah, exactly.
But when you look around
Yeah.
and you see so much stress, so much unease,
Yeah.
you have to wonder if the benchmark itself, the ideal, is maybe part of the issue.
Right. That internal checklist, be productive, stay positive, don't share weakness. It feels like we're always falling short. So this deep dive, we want to unpack that, explore if maybe our definition of normal is like a hidden source of struggle. And hey, if this kind of thing sparks your interest, do consider subscribing so you catch our future deep dives.
And we genuinely love to hear your thoughts in the comments, too. It's such a rich topic.
It really is. Your perspectives definitely add a lot.
And it's worth remembering, this normal isn't some fixed universal thing. It changes across cultures, across time. It's very much shaped by unspoken societal pressures.
Absolutely. So let's get into it. This myth of normal. What does it actually look like day to day? What are its main features?
Well, typically you see this relentless drive for achievement, right? Success defined externally.
Okay.
Then there's a kind of emotional restraint that keep calm and carry on. Idea pushed to an extreme, maybe.
Stiff upper lip. Yeah.
And just busyness. A packed schedule seems to equal importance or success. Being ill, mentally or physically, that's seen as a deviation, something to fix quickly.
But the angle we're exploring today, drawing from Dr. Maté's work, suggests that maybe this isn't just normal. Maybe it's a symptom itself.
That's a key insight.
Yeah.
The idea that in a society facing widespread distress, high stress, loneliness, disconnection, maybe what becomes normal behavior is actually a response to that distress.
So sickness becomes the norm in a way.
In a sense, yes. If lots of people are struggling with chronic stress, anxiety, isolation, maybe even physical illness, perhaps these aren't just individual failings. Perhaps they signal a kind of societal imbalance. And what we've normalized is actually, well, an adaptation to unhealthy conditions. It flips the perspective.
It really does. So instead of seeing someone struggle and thinking what's wrong with them, maybe it's what happened to them or what pressures are they under.
Exactly. It's a more compassionate and, frankly, more accurate lens sometimes.
Now, talking about these struggles, we have to talk about trauma, but often we think of trauma as big catastrophic events. This perspective widens that definition quite a bit, doesn't it?
Yes, and that's crucial. Big T trauma, war, major accidents, abuse, that's definitely part of it. But there's also the impact of, let's call them small T traumas.
Okay, like what?
Like maybe growing up feeling consistently unseen or unheard, or being subtly punished for expressing certain emotions, anger, sadness, or just not feeling safe enough to be your authentic self in your environment. These create wounds too.
Even if they don't look like trauma from the outside.
Precisely. But they can still have a really significant impact on our nervous system, on our development, on our long-term well-being.
And these kinds of experiences, these hidden wounds, they might connect to things we see later in life, like physical health issues.
There's growing evidence pointing towards strong links.
Yeah.
We see potential connections between these early, often unacknowledged wounds and things like chronic inflammation, certain autoimmune conditions, depression, anxiety, even addictions.
Wow.
It's not about saying these experiences cause these conditions directly in a simple A to B way, but that they create a vulnerability. The body remembers and responds, even when the conscious mind tries to push the experience away.
The body keeps the score, as they say.
That's a very apt way to put it. The body listens even when we try to silence the story.
And it's kind of unsettling how our society might unintentionally keep this cycle going, the way we value achievement over just being real.
Right, or independence over interdependence when we're fundamentally social creatures.
And that constant hum of busyness instead of allowing for presence, for stillness.
It definitely cultivates a kind of emotional numbing, doesn't it? We get these messages early on. Boys don't cry. Good girls are nice and agreeable. Adults need to be strong.
Yeah, handle everything.
So we learn to suppress vulnerability. We learn to put on a mask.
And the collective result of all this suppression, what happens when everyone's doing it?
Well, one consequence is that when people do inevitably suffer, when the cracks show, they're often seen as the problem. as individuals who are somehow sick or weak.
Rather than seeing them as maybe canaries in the coal mine, signaling a larger issue.
Exactly.
Huh.
We tend to pathologize the individual instead of looking at the broader environment, the cultural pressures that might be contributing significantly.
Which brings us back to the body holding on to things. Those feelings we push down, anger, grief, fear, they don't just vanish.
Not at all. Think about it physiologically. Unexpressed emotion creates tension, it alters hormones, it impacts immune function. We see correlations, again, not simple causation, but strong links between, say, chronically suppressed anger and certain autoimmune issues like rheumatoid arthritis.
Really?
Or between chronic stress, which often involves suppressed emotions, and things like elevated cortisol levels, weakened immunity. Even emotional loneliness is linked to higher risks of heart disease and depression.
So these aren't just feelings, they have a biological reality.
They become biological memories, in a way,
Yeah.
stored in our tissues and our nervous system patterns.
And you mentioned Dr. Maté's work includes compelling real-life examples of this, right? Stories that make it less abstract.
Absolutely. He shares stories like Maria, who developed MS. Looking back, she saw a lifelong pattern of self-sacrifice, putting others first, rooted in a childhood where love felt conditional on her being compliant.
Wow, her body reacting to that lifelong pattern.
Or James's, who developed severe IBS after a big promotion. The trigger seemed to be years of ignored anxiety and intense pressure to perform. His gut was reflecting the stress his mind was downplaying.
That makes so much sense.
And Elena, whose debilitating migraines lessened significantly only when she finally allowed herself to process deep, unresolved grief from losing her father years earlier grief she'd been told to just get over.
These aren't just anecdotes, are they? They're like windows into this mind-body connection.
They really illustrate how the body can hold on to what the mind hasn't fully processed or integrated. And often, digging deeper, you find what we call the wounded inner child.
Okay, explain that a bit.
It's that part of us that, usually early on, learned it wasn't safe or acceptable to be fully ourselves, to express our needs, our feelings, our authentic nature.
That feeling of having to choose. Do I belong or do I be me?
Exactly. And the drive for attachment, for belonging, is so primal, especially when we're young, that we often unconsciously choose attachment over authenticity. We learn to abandon parts of ourselves to fit in, to be loved, to survive emotionally.
It's a survival strategy.
Absolutely. But the long-term cost can be huge. You see it play out in things like chronic people-pleasing.
Oh, definitely.
Harsh self-criticism, deep anxiety about rejection, difficulty setting boundaries, and sometimes turning to addictions to numb the underlying pain or emptiness.
So healing involves, going back to that, connecting with that younger part.
Yes, but not to blame parents or caregivers. It's more about understanding those early adaptations and offering that inner child the compassion, the validation, the permission to exist authentically that might have been missing back then.
Reclaiming the right to be you.
Precisely. It's about retrieving those lost parts of the self.
And thinking about the cost. When we don't do that, when we just keep holding back, suppressing, what does that actually do to us?
Well, like we said, the feelings don't just disappear. Holding them back internalizes the stress, the conflict. It doesn't erase it. It just lodges it deeper within us.
Are there signs, things people might notice if they're doing a lot of repressing?
Yeah, there can be. Things like chronic fatigue that doctors can't find a physical cause for, or difficulty even naming your own feelings. Like you feel something, but you don't know what it is.
That emotional numbness.
Right. Or maybe real discomfort with conflict, or even with deep emotional intimacy. Sometimes it manifests as the opposite, sudden, seemingly out of nowhere emotional outbursts after long periods of calm.
Like the pressure cooker finally blows.
Kind of. It's like those suppressed feelings become these tight knots of energy in the body, potentially leading to both physical aches and pains and psychological distress.
So untangling those knots, moving beyond this myth of normal, how do we even start?
Well, if the normal is part of the sickness, then healing becomes almost an act of rebellion, doesn't it?
I like that. Rebelling against the pressure.
It's consciously choosing different values, choosing presence over performance, choosing to feel even the difficult stuff over numbing out, choosing authenticity over constantly seeking approval.
Redefining success not as external achievements, but as wholeness.
Exactly. Wholeness, congruence, inner peace. And seeing health not just as no disease present, but as the active presence of connection to yourself, to others, to life.
Okay, so practically, where does that journey begin? What's the first step?
It really starts with self-awareness. Just noticing, gently and without judging what's actually going on inside you. Your thoughts, your feelings, your body sensations.
Noticing without fixing immediately.
Yes. And cultivating connection first, maybe a kinder connection with yourself. Approaching your own struggles with compassion, the way you might approach a friend's.
It sounds like it's not just an intellectual exercise, though. You can't just think your way to healing.
No, that's a key point. Understanding is helpful, but the healing often needs to happen on an embodied level. Learning to feel the feelings safely in your body, processing the stored emotions. Often, this happens best in relationship either with a therapist or in safe, supportive connections with others.
Like relearning emotional safety.
In a way, yes. It's like offering yourself the secure base you might not have had.
Yeah.
Importantly, recognizing healing isn't linear. It's not a straight path upwards.
Right. There can be ups and downs. Good days, bad days.
Totally. It's often more cyclical. You might revisit old patterns or feelings, but maybe with more awareness or compassion each time. Those moments that feel like setbacks are actually often opportunities for deeper integration.
So the goal isn't to become some perfect, fixed version of yourself.
Not at all. It's more about returning to yourself, remembering and reclaiming your authentic essence, the person you were before the adaptations and defenses took over.
Okay, for someone listening who resonates with this, what are some concrete, practical things they could maybe try?
Well, one really accessible practice is what's called somatic tracking, just gently bringing awareness to physical sensations in your body, tension, warmth, tingling without judging them or needing to know why they're there, just noticing.
Tuning into the body's language.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Another is engaging in some form of inner child work. This could be journaling, writing a letter to your younger self, perhaps offering the comfort or understanding you needed then.
That sounds powerful.
It can be. Also, practicing authentic expression in small ways, maybe sharing a genuine feeling with a trusted person, or even just being honest with yourself in a journal. Building that muscle of authenticity.
And professional support.
Absolutely. Finding a therapist, particularly one who is trauma-informed, can provide crucial support, guidance, and a safe container for this kind of exploration.
Community, too.
Hugely important. Healing often happens in connection. Finding or nurturing relationships where you feel safe, seen, and accepted for who you truly are, imperfections and all. It counteracts that old pattern of needing to hide parts of yourself. And underpinning all of this is recognizing your inherent worthiness to heal just because you exist, not based on your productivity or achievements.
This whole trauma-informed view really shifts how we see health, doesn't it? It's not just about biochemistry.
It broadens the picture significantly. It helps us see that our physical and mental health are deeply connected to our life experiences, our relationships, the safety we felt or didn't feel to express ourselves, our connection to our authentic core.
So symptoms aren't just random problems.
They can be seen as signals. Behaviors, even difficult ones, can be understood as adaptations that made sense at one time. Pain becomes a messenger. It brings a sense of dignity back, I think. It humanizes the struggle and offers real hope.
So living more authentically, stepping outside that restrictive normal, what does that look like on a daily basis? What choices does that involve?
It's an ongoing practice, really.
Yeah.
It means learning to listen to your own needs for rest, for connection, for quiet, without feeling guilty or selfish.
Okay.
It means allowing yourself to feel your emotions, the whole range, without judging them as good or bad, honoring them as information.
That's a big shift for many of us.
It is. It also means protecting your energy, setting boundaries without needing to constantly apologize or over-explain, and consciously choosing actions that align with your values rather than just reacting from old survival patterns learned long ago.
It seems like recognizing we don't have to force ourselves into a box that doesn't fit.
Exactly. The mold might be the problem, not you. We can actually create new ways of being, ways that are more aligned with our true nature and well-being.
That feels like a really hopeful message to end on.
I think it is. The pain many of us carry isn't necessarily a sign of personal defect. It might be an imprint of living in a world that often asks us to disconnect from ourselves to belong.
But the wound itself can be the way in.
Yes. The wound can become the doorway to healing, to reclaiming those lost parts. Healing isn't about becoming someone different. It's about remembering who you truly are underneath it all.
That idea. You are not broken, you are becoming whole, one tender breath at a time. That really lands. Thank you so much for this incredibly insightful deep dive today.
It was my pleasure, a really important conversation.
We genuinely hope this exploration of the myth of normal and the power we have to heal those hidden wounds has given you some valuable things to think about. maybe sparked some personal insights.
It's definitely a journey, not a destination.
Absolutely. And just starting to recognize how our experiences shape us, that's a huge step. If you found this useful, maybe share it with someone else who might appreciate it. Your engagement really does help conversations like these reach more people.
We'll keep digging into interesting topics in future deep dives.
We will indeed. So stay curious, keep exploring those inner landscapes. Until next time, please take really good care of yourself.